Do you smell that? It's getting close. We are less than 36 hours away from professional tackle football. Bart Scott can't wait. Who else could it be? Me, your mate, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 86th installment of the Louie Tee Network Podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me today. This episode all going to be about the upcoming 2020 NFL season. Haven't had a chance to do this quite yet, so we're going to do it today, and we're going to jam pack it and cram it all into one episode. So brace yourself. This is going to be a hell of a ride. We're going to talk about every single division, every single team briefly, and give predictions for the season. Remember, this is a unique season in the sense that we're going to have 7 teams. The first time in NFL history, we'll have 7 teams from each conference, 14 total that make it to the postseason. Only one bye week. Remember, in previous years, 6 teams from each conference make it to the postseason, 2 bye weeks, and we had 4 games in wild card weekend. Well, we're going to have 6 teams playing in wild card weekend from each division, or each conference. So 6 games total on wild card weekend, 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. Should be crazy. Only one team getting that first round bye. So it's going to be a lot different towards the end of the year. You know, normally teams have the situation of a first round bye locked up, don't have anything to play for. Now you're essentially playing for the right to rest your players the first week of the postseason and advance to the divisional round. So you're not going to see as many teams taking games off late in the season. It's going to be a lot to play for. And I think this is going to be a really competitive season. And I don't think you're going to see the 14-2s, the 15-1s, or the 13-3s this year. I think because of no preseason and a lot of sloppy ball maybe early in the season, coupled with some injuries and maybe some COVID positive tests, you're going to see some records be altered. And I think this is going to be a much more competitive season for just about every team in the National Football League. But in any event, let's jump on and talk about these divisions. We're going to start with the division that won it all last year, or the team that represented that division and won it all last year. I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. So we're going to start with the AFC West. So I look at the AFC West last year. I'll give you the quick records from the teams last year. Chiefs finished first, 12-4, 6-0 in the division, followed by the Broncos in second place, 7-9, 3-3 in the division. Same thing could be said for the Raiders. They finished 7-9, 3-3 in the division. They finished third, and then the Chargers finished 5-11, 0-6 in the division. Didn't realize the Chargers didn't win a single game within the division last year. That's going to change this year, however. So when you look at this division, I think the Chiefs are still the cream of the crop with Mahomes under center, with all the talent that they have offensively, adding a guy like Edwards-Helaire. I think they're just getting stronger offensively. You know, if they're relatively healthy, they're dangerous no matter who's out there because of who's under center in Patrick Mahomes. He didn't get the richest deal in American sports history for no reason. This guy is the truth. Fully expect the Chiefs to be the best team, not only in this division, but one of the best teams in the AFC conference. And so I've got the Chiefs finishing the season at 11-5. I think this defense still has a ways to go. However, they're just so dynamic offensively that they're going to outscore a bunch of teams. As I've mentioned, they're going to have a tough go of it. They play the NFC South this year. They've got some big time matchups, man. I mean, they play the Patriots. They play the Buccaneers. They play the Saints. I mean, they play the Ravens. They've got a heavyweight schedule. When you look at the Chiefs' schedule, it's a heavyweight schedule. I mean, they got the brunt of it. And so, when you play the AFC East, you're going to get a little bit of a break there, I believe. But the NFC South, plus you won the division, so you're going to get the Patriots, you're going to get the Ravens, and you're going to get the Titans again, or the Texans, who you'll play week 1. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting go of it this year, but 11-5 is the best I can see the Chiefs doing, but that's going to be good enough for a divisional crown yet again in the AFC West. You go to the team that finished second in this division. It's the Denver Broncos last year, and Denver Broncos are a team that I was really high on coming into this offseason, and then you see the moves that they were able to make via the draft, and you look at what they did to finish up the season last year. You're really excited about Drew Lock. You're excited about all the weapons, Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler and Albert O and all the guys that they added to the mix. Obviously, Melvin Gordon the third, and you just look at all of the weapons that they have, not to mention, Philip Lindsay already there, and the big receiver, Cameron Sutton, Sutton already out there, and Noah Fant already out there. Just so many weapons for the Broncos. And so you look at the offense. I'm not sure about the offensive line. I've stressed to you guys all offseason that I'm not sure about their offensive line, especially with their right tackle opting out, their left tackle being one of the worst left tackles in all of football. I don't know about their offensive line, but if they can get it to their playmakers, look out. The defense took a massive blow with the injury to Von Miller, not to mention they lost Chris Harris Jr. in the offseason in free agency to a member of this division. It's going to be tough for the Denver Broncos defensively, I believe, even though they're going to be well coached and they still got talent on the defensive side of the football. I think they take a step back with the loss of Von Miller. He was good for at least a win, maybe even 2 down the stretch of games. When you need a closer, he's the kind of guy that comes through for you. And Broncos fans may say, well, what happened last year? We had a couple of games where we didn't get it done. Jacksonville comes to mind. Chicago comes to mind. I'll tell you, the Chicago game, I thought that it was a poor call late in that game. And in the Jacksonville game, he had a hit to the helmet of the quarterback. The Jacksonville quarterback, Gardner Minshew. Look, bottom line is you could have won those football games. It's going to be a lot tougher to win those games now, not having Von Miller. I've got this team finishing 8-8 this year. They're still going to be highly competitive and a scary team even to go up against with all that offensive firepower, but I don't know if it'll be enough for them to be able to win some of those close ball games down the stretch. You look at the the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a team finished 9-7 or 7-9 last year. I look at this team this year, a lot of question marks. You already lose one of your key receivers and a veteran, one of the few veterans you had on your football team. You got a couple of young rookies that you're going to be relying heavily on at the receiver position. I think both of those guys are good and are going to help this year. You got a star in the making in the backfield in Joshua Jacobs. I think there are a lot of talented football players, including Darren Waller at the tight end position. When you look at the Raiders football team, they've got a lot of stuff there that is intriguing, but losing Tyrell Williams, I think, was a massive blow because now you're relying on a bunch of first and second year guys at the receiver position, not to mention that I still think there's something missing at the quarterback position with Derek Carr. I don't know if there's a synchronicity there between he and John Gruden quite yet. We'll see. I think this is a big year for those two. If something doesn't go right here, maybe Gruden will go looking for a veteran quarterback because we know Gruden isn't the biggest fan of young quarterbacks. So we'll see what happens there. Defensively, I still think they've got a long ways to go. I think that's going to be where they probably lose some games this year and ultimately finished up the season at 7-9. They've got a brand new stadium that they'll be playing in. Should be fun. Should be an interesting year for the Vegas Raiders. A lot of changes to this staff, to this roster. And you know, I like what they've done in the secondary, but they're young in the secondary, and I think that's what's going to cost them as you look at that football team. Not enough pressure up front getting to the quarterback, and then conversely, or consequently, you're going to have some issues in the back end with a young secondary. Remember, you got a safety that everyone loves in Jonathan Abram, but he missed most of the season last year. So it's just young all around for the Raiders. 7-9 again for the Raiders as they repeat 7-9 in back-to-back years. And then finally, you got the Los Angeles Chargers. They're playing in a brand new stadium themselves this year. And this is a team that I'm excited to see because I think their head coach, Anthony Lynn, is finally getting the kind of quarterbacking that he has longed for in Los Angeles. With Phillip Rivers, it was hit or miss. If Phillip was on, they had a chance to beat anybody. If Phillip was off, he had a chance to throw them out of any single game they played in. 5-11, not what they had intended. Injuries really bit them in the ass last year, and it's already starting up this year. They're one of those teams that just seems to have a hard time outrunning the injury reaper, and so hopefully they can stay relatively healthy this year. But Tyrod Taylor is going to lead them. Again, this is the scary thing about this Chargers team. They're one injury away from having to turn to a rookie quarterback that's not ready to play. And Tyrod has not been the most healthy quarterback in the league when he has been given the keys to start. That's something that should trouble you if you're a Chargers fan, is that the Tyrod Taylor is not the cleanest bill of health in terms of a quarterback starting in this league. And all it takes is one hit for him to go down and you be staring at a rookie quarterback in Justin Herbert in the face and asking him to lead this veteran group of players that are ready to win right now. So it'll be interesting to see what the Chargers are able to do. I'm going to bank on Tyrod staying relatively healthy and him leading this team to a 9-7 record, which is good enough for second place in this division and also good enough to qualify for the postseason. So when I look at this division as a whole, two teams come out of it. The 11-5 Chiefs win the division, followed by the 9-7 Chargers, who also qualify for the postseason. Then the Denver Broncos come in at 8-8, finishing third, and the Las Vegas Raiders bring up the rear at 7-9. So I'm going to take a couple of your comments before we move on to the next division. And JP says, first competitive season in forever. It feels damn good. Best part, no Patriots to ruin our fun. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. John Perez also says, which rookie receiver are you excited for in 2020? For me, it's a toss-up between Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, and Henry Ruggs. Don't forget CeeDee Lamb out there in Dallas. He's going to have a major impact on that offense. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing Brandon Ayuk play in that awesome Kyle Shanahan offense. There are going to be some really good rookies. Don't forget about the Bills, who drafted a rookie in the third round that they really like, had a strong camp out of UCF. So there's going to be a lot of rookies, but Justin Jefferson is the guy that I think is going to have the biggest impact on his football team in his rookie season in Minnesota. So that's the guy that I would have to say. Clean Senpai writes, you think the Panthers offense is being slept on? We'll talk about the Panthers and their offense, and I don't think they're being slept on. We'll see. Obviously, they've got Christian McCaffrey. Any offense with that guy running the show essentially is a dangerous one. So I've never been the biggest fan of the Panthers offense, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of the weapons that they have out there. So I don't think personally that their offense is being slept on, but we will see. Let's see. Broken Key 711 says, Darby stinks, but seriously, do you think Mike McCarthy is overrated? I sure do. He went 6-9-1 before he got fired. Then the next year, rookie head coach got the Packers to 13-3. I'm not a big Mike McCarthy fan. I've already said that. I've stressed that numerous times. He's not a terrible coach, though. And that 6-9-1 record wasn't indicative of what he's been as a coach in Green Bay. Remember, Aaron Rodgers was hurt that season. They dealt with a lot of injuries, including Aaron Rodgers, and that was the reason for the 6-9-1 mark. So, again, I'm not going to kill McCarthy, but I'm not a big fan of his. I don't think he's a great coach. So we'll see what he does in Dallas. They've got tremendous talent. However, you get to the next division. It's the AFC South. So this is a division that plays the AFC North and the NFC North. So you're looking at a division that's playing some stiff competition, two really good divisions there two solid divisions in the AFC North and the NFC North. This is a division that always comes down to the wire. No one usually separates themselves from the pack. And generally, the team that wins the division wins it with 10 wins, 11 max. I think this is one of those years where 10 gets it done yet again. Last year, the records looked as follows. 10-6 for the Texans, who won this division, 4-2 in the division. Titans followed up at 9-7. They qualified for the postseason with a 3-3 mark in the division, and we all know that they were able to make it all the way to the AFC Championship game. The Colts finished 7-9 last year in what was a disappointing season, with some injuries really affecting their season, especially at the quarterback position. I think they kind of soured on Jacoby Brissett after last year as well, which is why they went out, drafted a quarterback in Jacob Eason, and also went out and signed Phillip Rivers in free agency. They were 3-3 in the division as well. And bringing up the rear was the Jacksonville Jaguars, 6-10 mark for the Jags, 2-4 in the division. I look at this division and I think it's going to be much of the same this year, except for one difference. I've got the Texans finding a way to win this division again at 10-6. Somehow, some way, they find a way to win despite Bill O'Brien at the helm. But again, Deshaun Watson is the reason why. We know the reason why. It's not like this is some kind of perplexing puzzle that we can't put together and we don't understand how the Texans keep winning. It's simple. Number 4 is the reason they keep finding ways to win double-digit games and win the division and host a playoff game. And I don't think 2020 is going to be any different. Deshaun Watson, despite missing his main man and his partner in crime, Nuke Hopkins, is going to find a way to get it done, because that's what elite quarterbacks in this league do. They will their team to victories. Watson is going to do it again. They're going to finish 10-6, and that's going to be good enough to win the division. The Titans, last year, to me, they're one of these teams every year. Not just last year, the year before that. I think every year they're one of those teams that easily could go 10-6 or 6-10, but somehow they managed to finish 8-8 or 9-7. I think this is another one of those types of years. They're going to be right in that mix again. They're a scary team because they can run the football, they can slow down the pace of game, but burn a lot of clock in the process. They want to beat you up, bludgeon you to death with the run game, but their defense is really solid. They add Jadeveon Clowney to the mix. That could really help them up front. I think they've been missing that. Hopefully Harold Landry steps up and shows why they thought he was worthy of an early selection in the draft a few years ago. So if they can find a way to get the defense to be a little bit more dominant, maybe the offense doesn't have to do as much. But I'm just not sold on Ryan Tannehill. And I just want you to ponder this. They're one Ryan Tannehill injury away from having to turn over their entire roster to Logan Woodside. I mean, how am I supposed to feel about that? Like, this is where you run into that territory of, man, I wish we still had Marcus Mariota. And I get it. He was going to have to go elsewhere, but you need a much better quality backup than Logan Woodside. And so I've seen Ryan Tannehill. I know what he looks like. They feel like they've got a guy that's turned the corner, that gets it now. And they may be right. He's always had some injury concerns, though, and that hasn't gone away from me. And I just can't see the Titans repeating the success of last season. I've got them going 7-9 this year, and so I got them taking a little bit of a step backwards. You get to the next team in the division. It's the Indianapolis Colts, and this was a team that went 7-9 last year. A little disappointing, but this year they've retooled their quarterback position. They got Phillip Rivers under center, and the beauty of Phillip Rivers under center, and this team could easily be 10-6, 11-5 this year if the ball bounces their way and they stay relatively healthy. And that's something they've failed to be able to do, especially at the receiver position with T.Y. Hilton and company. Last year, their Ohio State second-round draft pick wasn't able to stay healthy either. They've got to stay healthy at receiver, but if they can do that, they add a guy that I think, and we talked about, my man JP asked me about rookie receivers. This is another guy that I think could have a tremendous impact. Michael Pittman Jr., do not forget that name, was the first receiver taken in the second round, or the second one, I think, behind T. Higgins. Nonetheless, this is a guy that is going to be a stud for them. The exact type of receiver that Phillip Rivers has had tremendous success with throughout his career, whether you go all the way back to to Vincent Jackson, or you look at any of the other big wide receivers that he's just thrown the football up to and had guys go make plays for him. This is another guy that can do that. And so when you look at the way they've set that football team up to run the football, they add the Wisconsin back into the mix to go along with Marlon Mack. That's a hell of a 1-2 punch. That offensive line is as good as there is in the game in terms of blocking in the run game. They're going to go play action fake and allow Phillip Rivers to drive it down the field. I think this Colts team could be dangerous. Defensively, they add Defoe up front to a defense that was already solid, not great, but really solid, and were able to get after the quarterback last year. I think they're going to be better defensively this year. This is a scary team in Indianapolis, scary enough to go 9-7 and qualify for the postseason. I think they could easily go 10-6, 11-5 this year. Wouldn't shock me one bit, but I'm going to play it safe. 9-7 for the Indianapolis Colts, but good enough to get into the postseason. And then finally, everyone thinks the Jaguars are going to stink, and I am a part of that mob that thinks they're not going to be very good. I've seen a lot of prognosticators pick the Jaguars to finish not only last in this division, but last in the entire NFL. When you see mock drafts, way too early mock drafts for next year, usually the Jaguars are picking first. I tend to agree with that. I don't think they're going to be a very good team. I told you I wasn't a huge Gardner Minshew fan last year. Well, he won me over just a tad bit last year with his play, but he's still Gardner Minshew in my mind, and I just can't see him being a starting quarterback in this league. I could be wrong, and he could actually tear it up this year with a year of being the starter and getting all the first-team reps. He could take a monumental step forward. I just don't see it happening. I think they're going to have to draft a guy next year in what's supposed to be a very deep quarterback draft class. I think the Jaguars have gotten rid of too many talented defensive football players, and they've still got plenty more, but I think it's going to catch up with them finally this year with Yannick Ngakoue's exit. Yeah, they drafted another guy that I really like in K'Lavon Chaisson, but he's young and he's raw. He's got a lot of developing to do. Yep, I like what they got out of Josh Allen last year. He looks like he's going to be a beast, but they've lost too many pieces. Calais Campbell gone now. So is Yannick Ngakoue. We know Jalen Ramsey is gone. To me, they've got a lot of retooling to do. They got a young football team, a lot of young players. CJ Henderson's going to come out there and be their number one corner. He's young, wet, and behind the ears. Breath smells like Similac. I think they're going to have some struggles this year, stopping some teams at times, which is something they've been able to hang their hat on in past years. And I think they're going to have some issues potentially scoring the football as well with no Leonard Fournette. I don't think people realize just how big of a part of their offense Leonard Fournette was. The guy rushed for over 1,100 yards and caught the football for an additional 500 yards. He was a massive part of their offense. You take him out, I don't know how they replace him. I think they're going to struggle. 3-13 is what I see for this Jacksonville Jaguars team this year. And I think their head coach, Doug Marrone, is fired because of it. And I think they're looking for a brand new quarterback as well. So that's the AFC South. I've got the Texans winning the division at 10-6. I've got the Indianapolis Colts coming in second at 9-7. Both of those teams qualify for the postseason. Meanwhile, I've got the Titans finishing third at 7-9, and the Jags bringing up the rear at 3-13. So we go to the next team in the division, the next division in the AFC, and that's the AFC North. I didn't realize how bad this division really was a season ago. Outside of the Ravens, there really wasn't much here. The Steelers, they gave it a old college try last year, but they just had too many injuries, especially at the quarterback position. And so I didn't realize that division was as bad as it was. Last year's marks look like this: 14-2 for the Ravens. They were the cream of the crop of not just that division, but the entire AFC. During the regular season, they were 5-1 in the division. The Steelers were 8-8. They were 3-3 in the division. That was a hell of a job by Tomlin last year. 6-10 for the Browns. A lot of hoopla surrounding them last year. How they were supposed to be, the third best team in the conference and the third best odds to win the Super Bowl or go to the Super Bowl from the AFC. How'd that turn out for the Browns? 3-3 in the division, and the Bengals were 2-14, 1-5. Overall in their division. And This AFC North division will be playing the AFC South and the NFC East. So not the stiffest competition there if we go by past results from those two divisions that they'll be playing. So the AFC North has a chance to eat, and I think they're going to do exactly that this year with the teams that they'll have on their schedule. I think it's a very favorable schedule for this division, and I think they're going to take full advantage of it, and I think they're going to ultimately be one of the better divisions competitively in all of football. I've got the Ravens, who were the class of this division last year and was the class of the AFC during the regular season last year, going 12-4. Not much has changed from their roster. Yeah, they lose Marshall Yanda to retirement, but this football team is locked, stocked, and ready to go. I mean, the amount of talent that they have is ridiculous. And I know Lamar Jackson is the straw that stirs that drink, and if something were to happen to him, they could be in trouble. But they've got Robert Griffin III. I'm not saying he's Lamar Jackson, because he's not, but I think if he comes in there and just doesn't turn it over with the way that they can score and all the weapons that they have, he pretty much just has to get the football to these playmakers and get the hell out of the way. Similar to the Chiefs offensively, they've got so many weapons at the tight end position, at the running back position, at receiver. They've got a lot of speed, and they've added to that. J.K. Dobbins, think about that. They added J.K. Dobbins in the draft. This team is loaded, and I just don't see any way that this team can't find a way to win, 11, 12 games this year and be one of the better teams once again in the AFC. They're just loaded. You look at the defensive side of the football, I think they're still lacking there. They move on from Earl Thomas and that whole saga, but I think the offense is just too dynamic for the defense to really matter. They've added some stuff, Calais Campbell and some other guys up front that they think are going to help that defense along. When it's all said and done, I love what they did in the draft, and I think the Ravens are 12-4. You look at the Steelers, who finished second in this division at 8-8 last year. I've got them going 10-6. This is a team that'll get Ben Roethlisberger back. They've got a ton of guys that they got a ton of experience last year. The one thing that injuries do, however, present is opportunities for your young guys. And a lot of young guys got to play last year due to injuries. And I think those guys are much better because of it. Now you add in a veteran like Ben Roethlisberger back into the mix, and all of a sudden you take a team that was meddling around, the middle of the pack last year, and now they become one of the better teams. Again, I could see 11-5 for this Steelers football team if the ball bounces their way because of their schedule and the teams that they'll play. Again, the AFC South, no one's scared of any team in that division, nor the NFC East, although I think that division could have a couple of teams that are really good. That is another division that they should be able to take advantage of as well. So when you look at the Steelers and getting Ben Roethlisberger back and all the guys that they have that they like at the receiver position, the running back position, I think this is a team that is going to go out and do some good things. And don't forget their defense. TJ Watt, I don't think enough people understand just how good TJ Watt is. This is a guy that could easily be in the running for, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP. He's that good. He was dominant last year, and I think he's only getting better. They're going to be good defensively, and I think this is a team that could be scary this year. I've got the Pittsburgh Steelers going 10-6 and also qualifying for the postseason along with the Ravens in this division. But then you look at the Browns. I think the Browns are going to be markedly improved this year. This is a team last year, 6-10, expectations through the roof. A brand new head coach that was in over his head that I never thought should have gotten a job in the first place. But you guys know how I felt about that. I talked about it on the podcast ad nauseum, so I'm not going to go back down that road again. However, when you look at the Browns this year, they're vastly different. New GM, in Barry, new head coach in Kevin Stefanski, new offensive scheme that I think fits Baker Mayfield much better. They're going to run the football to set up play action fake. They're going to drive it down the field. They've got the weaponry to do it. And we all know about the talent that they have at receiver. They've got talent at tight end. They added Austin Hooper to go along with David Njoku and company. They've got a plethora of guys to get the football to in the pass game. They can even throw it to their backs out of the backfield. They re-upped with Kareem Hunt. We already know that Nick Chubb is a beast back there. They've got a lot of stuff offensively, and I think it's all going to mesh together well with their new offensive scheme under Kevin Stefanski. The real question then becomes defense. They have been decimated by injuries in the secondary, and the season has not even started yet. That's where you really start to look and say, if they can't get pressure up front with Myles Garrett and company, it could be a long season for them in the back end of their defense. However, I've got confidence that they're going to be able to score some points, outpoint some teams, win some games that way. They'll lose some games because I think they won't be able to get off the field defensively. At the end of the day, this is a team that I think is going to be much better, much improved. 9-7 for the Cleveland Browns. Unfortunately for them, they'll finish in like a gajillion tie with about 50 million other teams that are 9-7, and they won't qualify for the postseason, but they will be right there. And again, ball bounces their way. They win a game that maybe they're not supposed to. 10-6, and they're in. You go to the next team in the division. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. I've long said I think the Bengals are going to be a lot better than people think. I've seen a lot of mock drafts for 2021 that have the Bengals picking 2 or 3. I don't think they're going to be that bad, guys. And again, looking at the schedule and who they play, NFC East, AFC South, there are some winnable games on their schedule. I just think Joe Burrow's going to come in. I talk about talent all the time. This team has it, and he's going to add to the mix. He's going to come in there, and I think they're going to have a legitimate shot to win a bunch of games that you probably don't think they're going to win. I think most people have them as a 3-4 win team. I've got them at 6-10, and I liken it to last year in Arizona with Kyler Murray year 1. I just think that Joe Burrow is going to have that type of impact. Remember, the Cardinals went 5-10-1 last year, had that tie with the Lions week 1, but Murray was electric. The offense was fun to watch, and they scored some points. They just couldn't get enough defensive stops. I think they're going to be a similar team in that they're going to be fun to watch offensively. Joe Burrow is going to bring a breath of fresh air to that offense, and they're going to be a scary team. Like, you're not going to want to play Cincinnati because at any moment's notice, they could go off on you for 34 points with that offense. The question is, can they get enough stops defensively to stop the opposition from scoring 37? That'll be the question this year, especially with the injuries that they've already had to their secondary. They went out and signed Trey Waynes. He's already injured, going to miss most of the season, if not all of it. They also went out and signed Mackenzie Alexander. Well, he got in trouble with the law, so that could be a little bit of a litigation situation that puts him on the shelf for a little while. I think they've got some issues in that secondary, but when I look at Cincinnati, I wouldn't be shocked if they won a lot more games than people think. I've got them going 6-10, and that's a really good division this year. 12-4 Ravens finishing first place, 10-6 Steelers finishing second. Both of those teams qualifying for the postseason. Browns finishing at 9-7, just missing out on the postseason, and the Bengals finishing 6-10. You move on. I got a couple of comments. I'll take a few of these before we move on to the next division. I got one from JP here. It says, did you see Jason McIntyre's trash ass 21 mock draft that I sent you on Twitter? Fields to the Giants at 3. Seriously? God damn. No, I didn't see it. I don't really pay attention to those way too early mock drafts because so much can change. I mean, he's obviously, if he's got the Giants taking Fields, then he's anticipating the Giants not only stink, but that the reason they stink is because of Daniel Jones. I don't see the Giants giving up on Daniel Jones after 2 seasons. And furthermore, I don't think he's going to be terrible. So I just don't see that happening. That's why I don't get into those really all that often. JP also says, no way in hell am I buying the Browns hype again like I did last year. No, sir. Hashtag banana in the tailpipe. I tried to warn as many people as I could about the Browns last year and that they were going to fall flat on their face. I thought their offseason last year was horrendous, and it set them up for failure, and that's exactly what happened. And Believers Talk says, go Bills. What's going on, man? If you haven't already done so, sub my man's channel up over at Believers Talk, one of my guys. He's a massive Bills fan, does a tremendous job covering that team. Check him out. So we now progress over to the AFC East, and this is a division that I think a lot of people look at this division and feel like it's the Bills' time. And rightfully so. No Tom Brady means that the evil empire is over in New England, correct? I think that's the assumption made by most. Let's take a look at this division and see if I believe that to be the case. So obviously last year, the Patriots won the division at 12-4, 4-2 in the division, but the Bills were nipping at their heels at 10-6, and they were 3-3 in the division. Both of those teams qualified for the postseason last year. And we saw the Bills almost beat the Texans on the road, should have beat them in wild card weekend. Meanwhile, the Patriots were dispatched of by the Tennessee Titans. And nonetheless, the Jets 7-9 last year, a really strong finish to the season once they got Sam Darnold back from mono. He came in, he played well, and they took care of business down the stretch. So a lot of Jets fans are excited about this season after the finish to the season last year. I'm not so much. 3-3 in the division for the Jets, or 2-4, excuse me, for the Jets in the division last year. And then finally, the Dolphins 5-11 last year, 2-4 in the division. And remember, the start to the season had a lot of us believing that the Dolphins could easily go 0-16. I mean, their first two games last year against the Ravens, and I believe it was the Patriots in week 2, were just all-out assaults. They were ass-thrashed, and it looked like they were going to be a team that easily could go 1-15 or 0-16, and they kind of got it together, man. And I think that's a testament to their head coach and the culture that he set. They turned things around, and so 5-11 is what they finished last year. Let's take a look at this division, though, and you start with the Patriots. Cam Newton fascinates me in New England. I don't know what this offense is going to look like, but there's a love fest between he and Bill Belichick right now, and I still question the weaponry out there, but here's the thing. A healthy Cam elevates the players around him. He did it in Carolina for years. They never really had tremendous weaponry out there around him in Carolina, and he always elevated their play. And so if he's right, and he's the Cam Newton of old, Julian Edelman will be more than enough with a sprinkle of N'Keal Harry and some of the other guys that they have that they really like at the receiver position to get them over the top and have them playing good football. But I still question Cam's health. And is he truly right? Yeah, he looks good. Everything seems to be checking out right now, but he hasn't been hit. We'll see if he's able to stay healthy. I got questions about their defense. I was looking at on Twitter, and Aqib Talib was talking about all the tight ends that they have to play this year and how Bill Belichick was offering him $5 million, $6 million to come out there and just cover tight ends. So that means they feel like they've got an issue at the tight end position or covering tight ends at the safety position or corner position. Belichick loves to move pieces around and try to win that way. I think they've got some issues. They've got a lot of guys that opted out of the season this year, and none bigger than, of course, Dante Hightower. They've got some questions at the running back position with some injuries and things of that nature. A lot of questions, just not enough answers for me right now with this Patriots football team. I never like to count out Bill Belichick, and I'm not going to, but I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this year. I've got them at 8-8 this season. They're going to be in some ball games, and again, if Cam Newton is right and right for 16 games, this easily could be a 10-6, 11-5 ball club. But I'm banking on him being injured at some point this season, and I'm banking on this team just not having enough talent to win some games that Brady would have willed them to a season ago. I've got them 8-8 this season. Meanwhile, I've got the Bills this year coming in and having a chance to assert themselves as the new kings of the AFC East. It's been a long time since anyone other than New England has been able to make that claim. But I don't think the Bills, and they've had a really good offseason. The Bills really have, and they've been quiet, and I like quiet off seasons. Those usually go well. And I think they've been kind of under the radar. And I look at the Bills and I say, man, I'm a Josh Allen fan. I know a lot of people out there aren't Josh Allen. And look, some of the things he did in that playoff game last year, I will admit, not the type of things you like to see from a guy that you think is the future at the quarterback position. He did some really reckless things with the football last year, but I'm a Josh Allen guy through and through. I think he is very talented, and I think he's ready to take the next step, and I think the Bills organization believes he's ready to take the next step, which is why they invested the amount of resources that they did in getting him players that can help him win. And so I look at the Bills, and I look at their offense and the addition of Stephon Diggs. They already had two guys that were really good receivers in John Brown and Cole Beasley. I love Dawson Knox. You know how I feel about him at the tight end position. I think this is going to be a big year for their running back group. I think they've done some interesting things in the draft as well. They got a really good edge rusher, AJ Epineza. I just think the Bills are set up to be a good football team, but I think there are going to be some bumps in the road. However, because of the division being the way that it is this year, I think this is going to be one of the worst divisions in football. Let me just say that right now. I don't think this is going to be a very good division this year, but I think they're going to be good enough to be the best of the worst. Okay. And so I've got the Bills at 9-7, winning this division and being the only team in this division to qualify for the postseason. I've got the Jets as a bad football team this year. First of all, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Adam Gase. Never have been, probably never will be. I think Adam Gase is no less, okay, I think he's really good at his job, but no more than an offensive coordinator. I don't think he can be in control of an entire roster. I don't think he's a leader of men. And so I think he is a guy that can do some really good things with Sam Darnold. I just don't think they have a lot of talent out there, to be honest with you. I look at that football team and, you know, they're one or two injuries away at some key critical spots from being really bad. And, you know, you're asking young guys like Denzel Mims to step in and really produce for you. I mean, outside of Jamison Crowder, what do you really have at wide receiver? So you're asking Denzel Mims essentially to come in and be a number one right away, and I don't think he's ready for that role. Plus, I think their tight end room is a little weak. I look at their team overall. Le'Veon Bell seems to be at odds with the head coach. That's a mess. I just don't like the chemistry in that locker room. I don't love that Jamal Adams is now gone. I don't like that CJ Mosley is opting out, even though he really didn't play last year. I just think this is a team that has a lot of growing to do, and I don't know if this is the right man for the job. I think this is a 4-12 team is what I'm essentially telling you. I don't think they're going to be very good this season. I could be wrong. And, you know, after watching them at the end of the season last year, 4-12 might be a little low for them. I'm going with 4-12. I just don't see them being very good this season. And then I've got the Miami Dolphins finishing 6-10 this year. I think that's a little bit of an improvement, not much on 5-11, but you know, they're not starting Tua, which is going to be their future. Fitty's going to be competitive. We saw what he did last year. I think they're a much better football team, honestly. I just think you look at the divisions that the AFC East, this is why I think the AFC East is going to struggle. At its core, they're playing the AFC West and the NFC West, arguably two of the best divisions in all of football. I think the NFC West is the best division in football. So when you look at the divisions that they're playing, that's why I think they're going to struggle. Not because all of these teams stink. I just think the Dolphins aren't better than any of the teams in the NFC West. I think they're not better than most of the teams in the AFC West. So they're going to struggle. Then you're going to struggle inside the division. And so I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be a much better team. The record isn't going to reflect that, but they're going to be in ball games. They're going to have a chance. And late in the season, we're going to see Tua. He's going to make plays. We're all going to be mesmerized by him. And we're going to be high on the Dolphins going into 2021. And I think Brian Flores has this program going in the right direction. And I like a lot of the moves that they made this offseason. They got better as a roster this season. I just think they are overmatched with the teams that are on their schedule. I just think they're going to run into some teams that are just flat out better than them at where they are in the process. Next year, they may be a lot further along in the process and be able to win some of the games that they're going to lose this season. But I actually like what they're doing in Miami. So the AFC East goes as follows. Bills at 9-7, win the division and qualify for the postseason. They're the lone team to do so from this division. Then the Patriots finish up at 8-8, just miss out on the postseason, followed by the Dolphins at 6-10 and the Jets at 4-12. We now proceed to the main event of the evening, the main course, if you will. That was the appetizer. The AFC is the appetizer. Now we go to the NFC, which I think is going to be a really strong conference with a bunch of double-digit winning football teams and a bunch of good teams playing against each other. I think this conference is set up to really be fun to watch this year. And so we start with the team that represented the division that had a team representing it in the Super Bowl, and that of course is the NFC West and the San Francisco 49ers. And the NFC West is going to be playing the NFC East and the AFC East. So again, not really good divisions. I think this division, particularly because of how good it is, they can get fat off of some of the teams they'll be playing on their schedule. The NFC East has a couple of teams in there that you may be able to take advantage of, maybe even 3, depending on how the Eagles season shapes up, if they can stay healthy or not. And then the AFC East, I just told you, I just think it's not going to be all that great of a division. So I think this division has a chance to really capitalize off of that, and I think they will do exactly that, and you'll find out why I think they're the best division in football. We start with the San Francisco 49ers, though. Last year, they were 13-3, 5-1 in the division. We know what they were able to accomplish. They got the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs, ended up making it all the way to the Super Bowl before falling to the Kansas City Chiefs. Seattle Seahawks were 11-5 in this division last season. They were literally 6 inches away. Jacob Hollister just stopped touchdown away from being the number 1 seed and maybe having the playoffs go a lot differently. But they finished 11-5, 3-3 in the division last year. Rams 9-7, a little bit of a step back from them last year, 3-3 in the division. And the Arizona Cardinals 5-10-1 last year with a new head coach in Cliff Kingsbury and a brand new quarterback in Kyler Murray. They were 1-5 in the division. So the 49ers this year, I look at this team, think they've already been decimated by injuries at the receiver position, but this is a team that is predicated on being able to run the football, and they're going to be able to do that. They add Trent Williams, who, if he's back to his form, is one of the best in the game. And so they're going to be even better at running the football, if you can believe that. And they were one of the best in the business last year. So despite missing some receivers, I think they'll be just fine offensively. I think what's going to hurt them this year, however, is the fact that they're now the hunted. Last year, they were the hunters. No one really knew about the 49ers. They got off to a great start, but we kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it never did. They were just good. I think they're good defensively. I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back defensively this year. I do think they're going to be still really good on defense. However, I think that other teams will be better prepared to take on this football team, and they're going to force Jimmy G, and he's going to have to step up this year. They're going to force Jimmy Garoppolo to beat them this year. Not sure if he was primed to do that last year at times, especially in the Super Bowl. I think teams are going to be a lot more aggressive in attacking the 49ers offensively and going after their run game and loading up the box and daring them to beat them through the air. And with the injuries at the receiver position, obviously you've got George Kittle. He's a problem onto himself, but got a young rookie receiver in Brandon Ayuk. Your second-year guy, Deebo Samuel, is going to be out for the early portion of the season. Not to mention a couple of other injuries and guys opting out. I just think it's a team right now that could struggle a little bit, not as much as you think. I may be making it sound a little morbid. They're not going to really struggle. They're just not going to be 13-3 this year. I've got the 49ers as a 10-6 ball club this year, but that's damn good and good enough to qualify for the postseason as well. You go to the Seattle Seahawks, who I think have one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. I think Patrick Mahomes is one, and I think dangerous Russell Wilson is the second best quarterback in the league right now. And so much like I talked about with Deshaun Watson earlier in the show and how elite quarterbacks elevate the play of guys around them, Russell Wilson has never had elite talent around him. Now, he has had some good football players. I think he's starting to actually get really good talent around him for the first time in a long time. I like what they've done at the running back position, and they've added some more pieces to that running back group. But, you know, in looking at the receiver position, I think that's where, you know, a lot of people are excited about. DK Metcalf looks like he's the truth. I've always been a massive fan of Tyler Lockett. And so I think they're starting to really put some of those pieces of the puzzle together in terms of getting talent out there for Russell Wilson. And this is a football team that I feel like they're, you know, doing some really good things. They're taking steps in the right direction. I still question whether they have enough defensively up front to get after the quarterback. That's the one position where I look at it and I say, you're lacking. And it's a big, big problem for me. Back end, adding a Jamal Adams is going to help tremendously. It's going to allow them to do some of the things that they used to do with this defense. Now, if they can get after the quarterback, they could be a problem defensively. They added some pieces via the draft. I look at this football team. You got Russell Wilson. You got a offense that can score. You got a defense that's going to be solid. I think this is a good football team and good enough to not only make the playoffs, but win this division at 11-5. I've got the Seahawks claiming back what was rightfully theirs a few years ago, and they probably felt like should have been theirs last year, and that's the division crown out west at 11-5 and getting back to the top of the NFC West division. You go to the Rams. This was a team that was disappointing, and it's crazy when 9-7 is disappointing, but when you won the division 2 years ago, went to the Super Bowl a year after the next year, and then you fall flat on your face at 9-7, it seems like the world is over and the sky is falling, but I don't think that the Rams are that far off. They're getting into a new stadium now. They're getting comfortable. Todd Gurley's no longer there. I think they feel like they've done some things to kind of revamp the offense and tweak some things to put them back in a position to be successful once again. Defensively, they got Jalen Ramsey locked up now. They've got the baddest man on the planet on the defensive line in Aaron Donald. This team is locked, stocked, and ready to go. They're going to miss the presence of Dante Fowler Jr. off the edge. However, I think they've got enough stuff out there, and Aaron Donald by himself is a problem. So I feel like they're going to be just fine when it's all said and done. And really what hurt them last year was their offense. You know, the teams caught up to them. They had some injuries on the offensive side of the football. Offensive line was decimated by injuries. And I thought they kind of bogged down offensively. I think they're going to get their pep and their step back. I think what happened was year one and year two, the league hadn't quite adjusted to Sean McVay. I think year three, they did make the adjustment. Now McVay is going to make the adjustment to the adjustment. And I think he's going to be a step ahead of the game again. And they're going to be a really competitive team once again. And it doesn't hurt to be playing the NFC East and the AFC East either. And I think the Rams are right back in the mix as a competitive team. And they too qualify for the postseason at 10-6 this year. So this is a really good division, as I told you. I really think highly of the NFC West. And then where does that leave the Cardinals, a team that I think is going to be vastly improved this year? Well, I think, first of all, I've been on the Cliff Kingsbury train since he got the job in Arizona. Everyone who has been following me for any amount of time knows that I've been a huge fan of his, and I thought he was going to do a really good job. That being said, now you add Kyler Murray going into year two. A lot of people think he's going to be in the position to go for the MVP this year. I don't know about that, but you add Newt Hopkins to the mix, and all of a sudden you think that they're going to be dynamic, and they've got a lot of weapons out there, man. They're going to be fun to watch. That is a loaded football team with Larry Fitzgerald, Larry Legend out there, Christian Kirk, and they really like Andy Isabella. They've got weaponry, speed everywhere, guys that can run. They've got the two best set of hands in the entire league, and Newt Hopkins on one side and Larry Fitzgerald on the other. So, I mean, all he's essentially got to do is just throw it up there, and these guys will go and get it for him. So, not to mention Kenyon Drake in the backfield. They've got a chance to be one of the more dynamic and explosive offenses in football. And they've got one of the best pass rushers in Chandler Jones on their football team on the defensive side of the football. They just gave Budda Baker a massive deal as a safety that's a guy that can move around and do a lot of things for them. Patrick Peterson still playing good football. They've added pieces out there. They feel like they've got a chance to really compete. I'm really fascinated by the Cardinals. I think they're 1 year away from making a power move, but this is a really good step in the right direction. I've got them going 9-7 this year. Now, no losing records in this division. Every team finishing over 500. You've got the 11-5 Seahawks winning division. You've got the 10-6 49ers and the 10-6 Rams. All three teams qualifying for the postseason. And the Arizona Cardinals just missing out. And with this revamped, reworked playoff system, 4 teams could essentially make the postseason from one division. All 4 teams could make it. The Cardinals are just going to miss out in what is a strong NFC conference. So now we move on to the NFC South division. And this is a division that I look at, and let's see if we got any comments. I want to take some comments if we have any. JP asks, when do I anticipate Tua getting onto the field for Miami? I think he's going to get on the field before week 10, somewhere in there. They've got to be out of it before they do that. So we'll see what happens. Anyhow, and injuries could also play a factor into that. If Fitzpatrick goes down, if Fitty goes down, boom, you see a guy come in Tua Tagovailoa and maybe never relinquish it again. Anyway, let's get to the NFC North. Excuse me. I think I said South. NFC North. The Packers were in the NFC Championship game last year, so that's why we traveled to this division next. And this was an intriguing division last year. Packers were 13-3. I thought it was a fraudulent 13-3, but 13-3 nonetheless. They cleaned up the division at 6-0, and I thought a lot of what they were able to do stemmed from them really being strong in their division. The Minnesota Vikings, they broke a rule last year, and they're going to pay for it this year. The football gods are coming to collect. I've always long said, you don't have at least a 500 record in your division, you can't go to the postseason. Well, they were 2-4 in the division, but they finished 10-6. And that got them a trip to the postseason. And the only reason they got to 10-6 was because their division played the NFC East, I believe, last season. And that division was god-awful. So they were able to get fat off of the Washington football team, the Giants. I want to say they lost to the Cowboys, but I think they were able to beat the Eagles. So they got fat off the division. And so they're going to pay for 2-4 and sneaking in the back door of the postseason last year. But 10-6 last year, big mark for them. The Bears were 8-8. And, it's funny because I really feel like the Bears' demise was grossly overstated last year. I was one of those people that felt like the Bears were like 5-11 because of all of the nonsense that went on in Chicago last year with their head coach and the quarterback position and all the injuries. I mean, they lost so many guys. Akeem Hicks went down early in the season, like week 3, week 4. They had a bunch of injuries last year that kind of decimated that football team. But they were 8-8. They went 4-2 in the division. Like, they weren't that bad. And I know a lot of people are ragging on Mitchell Trubisky. We'll talk about the Bears here in a second. And then the Lions brought up the rear at 3-12. And whew, man, they started out the season like 2-0. And they went to Lambeau on a Monday night, got jobbed by the referees, and man, did their season go downhill fast or what? They were 0-6 in the division. Matthew Stafford, I broke my back, hurt himself last year, and they were never the same. So let's take a look at this division this year. Start with the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is supposed to have a fire lit under him and fuel added to the fire with the first round drafting of quarterback Love. And so Jordan Love, and a lot of people think he's poised for a massive year. I'm like, he might be, but if I would have felt a lot more, confident about that had they added more weaponry out there. Like, they didn't do anything at the receiver position, and maybe they love their receivers. They might love Valdez Scantling. They might love Equanimous St. Brown. They might love Jake Coomer. I would have loved it if they would have done something, and they felt like they had done something by going out and getting Devin Funchess. Well, he opted out of the season. So I look at the Packers and I say, it's up to you again, Devontae Adams. What do you have? And so, we'll see what happens with that Packers football team. But they've got Aaron Rodgers, and as long as number 12 is still back there firing bullets, they've got a shot. I think they're going away from him as the focal point of the offense, though. We kind of saw that last year. They ran it a lot more, play action fake. We know what their head coach's philosophy is, and we know what tree that he comes from. So, watching that offense kind of evolve or de-evolve, but evolve into more of a balanced attack, They draft A.J. Dillon this year, which kind of signifies that they really want this offense to be even more balanced. So maybe they're taking the football out of Rodgers' hands a little bit more and allowing the ground game to kind of help. The defense was vastly improved, except for when they played San Francisco both times last year. Outside of those two games last year, the defense was really good last year. Got after teams. The Smith brothers were absolutely phenomenal, both eclipsing 12 sacks on the year. And so if they can keep that up, they've added some pieces defensively. They locked up Kenny Clark long term. The secondary that was really young last year, getting a year older. I just think this Packers team has a chance to be good again. So much so that I've got them at 11-5, and I think that's good enough to win the division in the NFC North in 2020. Minnesota Vikings, they're a team that's really intriguing. Mass exodus this year, a lot of veterans exiting stage left. No more Trey Waynes, no more Mackenzie Alexander, no more Everson Griffin, no more Xavier Rhodes, no more Stephon Diggs. There's a lot of big shoes to fill. And already we're hearing that they're all-world young elite edge rusher. And yes, they went out and got Yannick Ngakoue. I understand that. But to me, the guy that is still the main attraction defensively is Danielle Hunter. Well, he's trending towards not playing in week 1 due to an injury. Today's practice is supposed to go a long way in telling if this guy will be available on Sunday. I just look at this team this year and I say there are some issues that I have fundamentally with them that they haven't necessarily addressed. And there's a reason Kirk Cousins hasn't beaten the Chicago Bears since he got in a Minnesota Vikings uniform. There's a reason that they went 2-4 in the division last year, because the Packers can all of a sudden get after the quarterback. And it's a reason that the Lions, I feel like, have gotten better and are going to be a little bit more competitive when it comes to Minnesota this year. And it's because I've seen Kirk Cousins up close and personal. I'm a Kirk Cousins fan. But Kirk Cousins is a guy that struggles when pressure is applied. And I think this division can apply pressure on the quarterback. And so when you look at the Bears, the reason why he hasn't had any success in his 0-4 versus the Bears since joining the Minnesota Vikings is because they can get after the quarterback. The reason he struggled and was swept by Green Bay last year, why? Because they can get after the quarterback, and they did at a high clip last season. And I think the Lions have upgraded their pass rush this year, and I think they're going to struggle, are the Minnesota Vikings. You don't subtract a 1,000-yard receiver and all of the guys that I just talked about on the defensive side of the football. Now, I love their safeties. Harris, who they put on a franchise tag on, and, Harrison Smith. I think those guys are really good. They got a young secondary, a bunch of young corners that they're going to be relying on. That's always scary. Their linebackers are really good. They're among the best in the game when they're all healthy and clicking on all cylinders. So I don't necessarily worry about them at the linebacker position. But getting pressure is going to be paramount for that defense. If they leave that secondary out to dry, they could be in some trouble. And then you look on the offensive side of the football, Dalvin Cook, I think they're going to be fine from the standpoint of the running back position. I saw a lot out of Madison last year. I did not know about Alexander Madison out of Boise State. Watch tape, wasn't that blown away by him? I was impressed last year. And even if Dalvin Cook isn't healthy, he can step in and give them something at the running back position. I think I love Justin Jefferson, and I think he's going to be a stud for them. And I think he's going to step in and be a stud right away. And so you're thinking, well, if you like the offense, you like some of the pieces that they have and the defense, I just think it's a step back type of year for the Minnesota Vikings. Everybody got their extensions. Everybody's not on high alert this year, kind of comfortable. Kirk's got an extension. He's feeling good now. I think the Vikings take a step, and the football gods are coming to collect. You went to the postseason under false pretenses last year with a 2-4 mark in the division. I think you're going to stink in the division again, because I think the Bears are going to be a team that you're going to struggle with, as you have in the past. I think the Packers are a team that you always struggle with, and I think you're going to struggle again. And I think the Lions may be able to even get you this year. I've got the Minnesota Vikings at 8-8 this season, and that's not good enough to qualify for the postseason. The Bears, however, are a team that a lot of people are ragging on. Oh my God, they're starting Mitchell Trubisky. How could they? Look, I've long said that Mitchell Trubisky isn't as bad as people make him out to be. His mama named him Mitchell. I'm going to call him Mitchell. So I've said that, look, he's not the best in the world. He's not the worst in the world. You can win with Mitchell Trubisky. Now, the defense is going to have to play well. They're going to have to run the football. And he's going to have to be more consistent. But I said this before. Let's not act like this isn't a guy that won the division 2 years ago and went, 10-6, 11-5, whatever the mark was. And were a Cody Parkey missed field goal away from advancing to the divisional round. Like, you can do a lot worse in this league than Mitchell Trubisky. That being said, no one's looking to be average at the quarterback position. He's going to have to step his game up. I thought his head coach, Matt Nagy, was on a super power trip last year. He was smelling himself after coming in and having the success in his first year, and he wanted to put a lot more on the plate of Mitchell Trubisky, and they got away from the run, and, the media got on him, and he didn't handle it well. I always have said that you find out the true colors of a person when the pressure is applied, when things aren't going well and pressure is being applied. How does that person handle that situation? And we saw Mike Tomlin handle it one way last year. Like, both teams ended 8-8, okay? And neither made it to the postseason, but you saw Mike Tomlin handle it one way, and you saw Matt Nagy handle it another way. So there's ways to go about handling pressure and being criticized in the media. I didn't think he handled it well last year. That being said, they still got to 8-8. This is still a talented football team. They still got Khalil Mack and a bunch of ballers on the defensive side of the football. That's still going to be a tough defense to go up against when they're healthy. And then Mitchell Trubisky is a guy that I think can lead this offense. In a worst case scenario, you got Nicholas Foles backing him up. And we all know the damage that Nicholas Foles can do in a backup role. Okay, so I think they're going to be just fine this year, and they're going to be dangerous. And they're a team that, if the ball bounces their way, they could be in the postseason. They're one of those teams you don't want to play late in the season at Soldier Field when it's cold. They're going to be problematic for some teams. I got the Bears finishing 9-7 this year, and I think they're going to have a chance to make the postseason. I don't have them making the postseason right now. They're on the outside looking in on what's a really loaded NFC conference, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Bears are able to sneak in the back door of the postseason with a win or two that we don't see coming. And then finally, the Lions. And keep in mind, this division is playing the NFC South and the AFC South. Not the two best divisions in football, even though the NFC South, I think, is going to be really good. I think that you can sneak some wins from the AFC South. And so this Lions football team, 3-12 last year, not really indicative of what they're capable of. You take your starting quarterback out of the mix for 2/3 of the season. That's the kind of record you're going to end up with. When I look at this Lions football team, I'm not a Matt Patricia fan. You know that. I think Matthew Stafford is good. But yeah, I've never been the biggest Matthew Stafford fan. I think a lot of his numbers are inflated a bit, and never really substance behind those numbers. No wins or nothing really tangible that you can kind of sink your teeth into when you talk Matthew Stafford. But when you look up at the record books, he's going to be at the top of a lot of categories when his career is all said and done. That being said, this is a team with enough talent to compete. I never go into a season thinking the Lions are going to be really good this year. That just never rolls off the tip of my tongue. I don't know why that is. And this is another one of those seasons where I look at the Lions. Every year I look at the Lions and I say, you're anywhere from 6-10 to 9-7. That's usually, and then when they have one of those out-of-body experiences, they go 10-6 and they make the postseason, and then they lose in wild card weekend to the Seattle Seahawks. But that's usually every 4 or 5 years. They're not at that point yet. So I look at the Lions, and to me, they're 7-9. They got 7-9 written all over them. They play in a really good division. They're gonna get beat up in the division like they always do. They may sneak the Vikings, they may sneak the Bears, but more likely than not, they're gonna end up 2-4 in the division, maybe 1-5, 3-3 at best. They're gonna lose some games that we think they should win. They're gonna win a game or two that they should lose. It's the Detroit Lions. It's what they are every year. They're one of those fan bases. It's got to be hard being a Lions fan because it's hard to get excited about Lions football, for me at least. I'm not a Lions fan. It's hard to get excited about Lions football because it seems like they've been stuck in neutral for the last decade. When's the last time you looked at the Lions and said, man, they got a shot to win the Super Bowl, or they've got a shot to be dangerous this year? Like, I've never, ever looked at the Lions and said, and this is back in the Megatron days, Evans to Megatron. I never looked at them and said, man, Look out for the Lions, man. These boys are dangerous. I feel like even if they make it to the postseason, they're one and done. Anyway, I digress. So in this division, I've got the Packers finishing first at 11-5. I've got the Bears finishing second at 9-7. I've got the Vikings finishing third at 8-8. And I've got the Lions finishing 7-9 in fourth place. That's actually a really solid division top to bottom, though. You know, if your last place team is finishing 7-9, you're doing something right there. So not a bad division at all. We get to the NFC South division now. And I look at this division, and this is an intriguing division, man. A lot of good teams here. Last year, the Saints were 13-3, 5-1 in the division. The Falcons were 7-9 last year. They finished second. I didn't realize just how bad this division was until I started looking at the records from a season ago. Bucks were 7-9 as well, and the Panthers were 5-11. Saints were 5-1 in the division. They cleaned up in the division. The Falcons were 4-2, and that's what gives me hope for them this year. The Bucks were 2-4 in the division, and the Panthers were 1-5 in the division last year. So NFC North and AFC West for this division. Those are two pretty damn good divisions, if I may say so myself. So not going to be easy sledding for this division. However, there are some teams that are going to be able to navigate their schedules pretty effectively and get some wins. We start with the team that's the cream of the crop of the division, and that's the New Orleans Saints. You could easily say, look, the Saints are one injury away from being a mediocre football team. We thought that last year. Teddy Bridgewater steps in, goes undefeated, and the train just keeps rolling on. I don't know if that'll happen with Jameis Winston, but we know he's talented as well. Bottom line is, they're a veteran football team. They're ready to win, and I think Jadeveon Clowney might have been able to put him over the top had he signed in New Orleans. I still think they're missing pass rush up front. You know, I'm about to call him Will Smith. Cameron Jordan is a beast, but he needs some help. He needs some more help off the edge. This is a good football team, though. You know, they got the best wide receiver. You know, if he's not number one, he's number 1B, but with Nuke Hopkins. They've got one of the best running backs in the league in Alvin Kamara, who's about to get a new deal. They've got a veteran quarterback who will be a future first ballot Hall of Famer. They check all the boxes off, man. They just know how to win. They're a veteran team. Defensively, they're up and down. They're hit or miss defensively, and that's what scares me with them. But when they're on and locked in defensively, they're a tough outfit to deal with as well. They're a good football team, and I think they're ultimately going to finish 12-4 this year. And that's not only good enough for the division crown, that's good enough to win the number 1 seed in the first round bye in the NFC playoffs. So I think they're going to be good. But this is the thing about the Saints. They are no strangers to squandering home field advantage in the postseason. They do it almost every year. Home is not home for them once they get to the postseason. You know, outside of the Minneapolis Miracle, they found ways to throw away home field advantage, whether losing to the Vikings last year or a couple of years ago, they were robbed, but they still had a chance to win in overtime. And I hate when everyone talks about that game because they still had a chance to win that game in overtime, and they didn't. So, you know, they find ways to squander home field advantage. So I don't know if that even matters that they'll be the number 1 seed, but they'll be the number 1 seed at 12-4. The Falcons finished 7-9 last year. They were decimated by injuries. And look, their head coach and GM were on the ropes. I mean, rope-a-dope style. That we thought both of those guys were going to end up having the fight stopped by the ref, and those guys were going to be dismissed at the end of the season. But somehow after the bye week, I don't know what the hell happened, but this Falcons team woke the hell up. And I mean in a major way. They go to New Orleans and beat the Saints. The lone loss in the division that the Saints were handed last year came at the expense of these Falcons. They then go on the road to San Francisco, who only lost 3 games in the regular season last year, and dispatch of them as well. This was a team that had it going late in the season, saved both Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff's job. And I think these guys are on a mission because they're not out of the woods yet. They got another lease on life, and I think they're going to take advantage. If they can just stay healthy defensively, one of their biggest issues last year, they could not get off the field on third downs. They could not get after the quarterback. And those two things go hand in hand. If you can't get after the quarterback, he has all day to throw the football. He's going to find somebody on 3rd and 8, and they're going to move the sticks. They go out, they add Marlon Davidson in the draft. They also add, which I thought was the biggest acquisition for them in the offseason, of Dante Fowler Jr. And now all of a sudden they've got a chance defensively with the addition of Keanu Neal back healthy. He's got to stay healthy because to me, he's one of the catalysts of that defense. I love Deion Jones and what he means to that defense. If he's healthy, I think they've got a chance. Not to mention they add another corner who I like in AJ Terrell. I've always been an Isaiah Oliver fan. I think he's starting to get it at the cornerback position. I think they've got enough stuff defensively to compete. I think they've got it. We know they've got more than enough stuff offensively. I said all of that to say this. I got the Falcons at 10-6 this year, and that's good enough to qualify along with the Saints in this division. Now you get to the Bucs. Everybody's singing the praises of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I told you last year, don't drink the Browns brew. I told you guys to put the cups down. Everyone was drunk off the Browns brew, and by week 7, everybody was trying to sell all of their Browns memorabilia and all of their tickets that they had taken to Vegas on the Browns, and they were trying to sell them off. I'm telling you this year, if you've got stock in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, now is the time to sell while it's still high. Okay, sell it now. Now, they're not going to stink. Okay, not like the Browns did last year. That's not what they're going to do. Brady won't allow it. However, they're not going to be as good as everybody thinks they're going to be. And I've long said this. They're a young team defensively, and that's what's going to hurt them. If Brady and company can score 37 every game, and it's not out of the realm of possibility with all the talent that they have offensively, all right? But if they're not able to score, and I've got questions about their offensive line, I do. And we know Brady is not the same Brady from 5 years ago. He's not the same Brady from 3 years ago. And so you can't allow pressure in the face of Tom Brady. He's not going to react well to it at 87 years old. That being said, with the amount of talent they have offensively and the amount of talent they have defensively, because this is a talented defense, it's just young. And when you're young, you're dumb. And when you're dumb, you make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, you give up touchdowns. And when you give up touchdowns, you lose ball games. And that's what I think is going to happen to the Buccaneers this year, is that Brady isn't the Tom Brady of old that can will teams to victories. We saw that in the playoffs last year. Playoffs? Yeah, we saw it in the playoffs last year. He's not that guy anymore. Now, there's more talent around him on this team offensively than there was in New England. That's an understatement. But when it's all said and done, is I said this earlier on my podcast earlier. You're not going to come in to this division thinking that the Buccaneers, that the Saints and the Falcons are just going to lay down for you. You're not going to stroll in. And first of all, have you seen the Buccaneers schedule? And I get it. No fans in the stands in most of these buildings. And, it's not the same. Have you seen the schedule, though? All right. It's a murder's row schedule. Now, everybody in that division, for the most part, has to play that same schedule. But I said all of that to say this. They're going to struggle at times this year, and they're not going to be as prolific an offensive team as everybody thinks. They're going to be good. Brady can't throw the deep ball. I keep trying to emphasize it. Brady is throwing balloon balls 35 yards down the field. Now, he is going to dissect defenses in the short to intermediate game. He's still sharp as attack when you're talking, 20 yards and in. But when he starts loading up and that back leg and that arm goes forward and he throws that football 80 yards sky high and that thing comes down like a punt, that shit's not going to fly in Tampa Bay. All right, now he's got some guys that can go and get it, especially Mikey, who's already dealing with an injury. Seems like it's a minor one, but nonetheless, I said all of that to say this. They're going to be good. They're just not as good as everybody thinks. And so they're going to be in ball games. This defense is going to struggle. I think they're young and they've got some talent, but they're going to struggle defensively, and I think when it's all said and done, you're looking at a 9-7 football team. Now, in the AFC, that probably would have been good enough to get them in. Sneak in the back door, and then, once you get in, all bets are off. In the NFC, however, 9-7 is not good enough. Too many teams winning double-digit games to get you in at 9-7, and so I got the Buccaneers just missing out on the postseason at 9-7. Now, if Brady's back next year and he's still good, I think next year is the year when this defense starts to really take shape, and they could be really dangerous in year 2 of Tom Brady. And then finally, I've got the Carolina Panthers bringing up the rear in this division. They're going to be a really bad team this year. I really see that happening. And look, here's why. Everywhere that their new head coach has been, and I actually think he's going to turn them around, and I think he's going to have them playing some good football very shortly, okay? Matt Rule is a hell of a coach. Everywhere he's been, he's won. And he hasn't just won, he's won big, okay? And I think he's going to do that in Carolina as well. I don't doubt Matt Rule for 1 second. He's got a philosophy. He knows what he wants, and he goes and he gets those types of players, and he's going to do the same thing in Carolina. He wants speed. He wants athleticism. He wants length. He wants guys that he knows are going to perform at a high level for him, because that's what the analytics say. He's an analytics guy. However, if you go and look at the journey of Matt Rule and how he landed in Carolina, and you look at all of his stops, that first year is always rough, okay? Whether you're talking Temple or you're talking Baylor or you're talking here, it's always rough. And I think it's not going to be different here. I think Teddy Bridgewater is actually going to be really good for them, and they're going to be in some ball games. But he's in the midst of turning over that roster, totally changing the way that this roster looks and feels. And with that comes some bumps in the road. You got Christian McCaffrey. That's good for at least 2 wins right there. And they're going to compete. And they're going to be in some games. And they're going to have a chance. I don't love their skill position, though. I'm not a Curtis Samuel fan. I'm not a big DJ Moore guy. I never have been, really. And so when I look at their collection of talent, I'm like, I'll tell you this much. They're going to struggle this year to win games. They're going to be in games. They're going to struggle to close the show in some games. They're going to lose some games close at the end. And you're going to look up, and the record will not reflect just how competitive they were in 2020. However, look out for these boys in 2021. I'm just saying. Bottom line is, though, I got the Panthers being 4-12 this year. They're going to struggle this year. They're really going to struggle. And I know Panthers fans are saying, how the hell are we taking a step back when we upgraded the quarterback position from all the nonsense we had? And we got all these players that we're really excited about. How are we taking a step back? Because it's a new regime. And when it's new like this, and you're coming in and you're changing everything, you got to struggle first. And Matt Rule, as I've mentioned, struggles in year 1 everywhere he goes. But after that, the rule is on after that. And he's going to start really getting everyone to buy in. He'll get all the players that he's looking for in year 2. And I think they're going to be a troublemaking team. But until then, I think they're going to struggle in year 1. I got the Panthers at 4-12. So this division looks like this. Saints 12-4. Falcons 10-6. Both of those teams qualifying for the postseason. Bucks just missing out on the postseason at 9-7. And the Panthers bringing up the rear at 4-12. And then finally, NFC East. This division, I don't think is going to be very good. Again, remember how bad this division was last year? It's not going to be that bad this year. But I think there's still 2 teams that are grossly behind the rest of the division. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, get your laughs in and get your wins in now. This is the last year this shit is going down like this, because the Giants are going to be much better next year, and so are the Washington football team. All right, both of those teams are going to be I'm not even going to speak for the Giants. I'm going to speak for my boys. We're going to be damn good in 2021. I'm just letting you know. And we're going to put some teams on notice this year. And I'm so excited for the season that I really think that this team has a chance to be a little bit better than even I thought initially. That being said, this is still not a good division, okay? At the end of the day, this is a division that's going to struggle this year, and they play the NFC West and the AFC North, 2 really good divisions, and I think they're going to struggle, bottom line. And so, to me, it's a 2-team race like it was last year. Eagles, Cowboys are going to be ahead of this division. I think the Giants and Washington are going to be struggling for the right to stay out of the cellar. But at the end of the day, the Eagles were 9-7 last year, but 5 of those wins came in the division. They were 5-1 in the division last year. I mean, this division was god-awful last year. Cowboys were 8-8. They were 5-1 in the division. So think about that. The Cowboys won 8 games, 5 of which came in the division last year. The Eagles won 9 games, 5 of which came in the division last year. Like, they couldn't beat anybody else outside of the division, essentially. Hell, the Eagles even lost to the Dolphins last year. I mean, it was a bad division. The Cowboys lost to the Jets. You know, like, we were a terrible division. The Bills embarrassed them on Thanksgiving last year. It was a joke. The Giants were 4-12. They were 2-4. At least they won a game in the division last year. They were 2-4 in the division. And, of course, my boys, man, it was a rough year, but we got a prize out of it. 3-13, 0-6. I can't tell you the last time we didn't win a single game in the division. Probably happened 3 years ago. I mean, you know, every time I say that, you go back and like, oh, it just happened in 2014. You know, like that was rough though. Not beating a single team in the division is rough. That's not going to happen this year, however. But you look at this division. You start with the Eagles. I think the injuries are already starting in Philadelphia. Wentz hasn't been able to stay healthy for a full 16-game slate. I don't think since his rookie season, if he even stayed healthy for a full 16 that year. I just think that this team, while it's talented, they're an older team. I think they've got some guys that just seem to always find the pink room. I think that this is a team that's just going to be battling injuries all year long. But if Wentz is under center, they've got a shot. I still like the Eagles to be hyper competitive, and I think they're going to do the same thing they did last year, go 9-7, and that's going to give them a chance to compete. The Cowboys, I think, are the class of this division, however. From a talent standpoint, you could argue the Cowboys are the best team in the division. I look at the Cowboys, and I think that this is a team that could compete with anybody in the league talent-wise. I'd put their wide receiving core up against anybody's in the league. I put their running back position up against most teams in the league. You know, Zeke Elliott being the lead dog there. I thought Tony Pollard did some extraordinary things last year as a backup running back. I like Blake Jarwin at the tight end position. Offensive line-wise, they're good. I don't think they're as good as everybody thinks. I think they're a little overrated offensive line-wise, but they're still good. Like, Dak Prescott took his game to another level last year, and I think he's going to continue to play good ball in a contract year. Their offense is lights out. You don't have to like the Cowboys, but you will respect their offense. Defensively, I don't know if I'm buying what they're selling with their defensive ends. I still need to see Aldon Smith, but I've heard nothing but great things about him in camp and how he looks like the Aldon Smith of old. They get Randy Gregory off a suspension back. They go out and get Everson Griffin, and they still got Tank Lawrence. That's a hell of a foursome, guys. Now, inside, they lose Gerald McCoy. That's a devastating blow. You still got Dontari Poe and some other guys that you like inside to mix it up. The linebackers, we know how good they are when they're healthy. Jalen Smith and company, my goodness. Leighton Vander Esch, you can't find a better twosome in the league when those boys are right. The secondary is where I have question marks. That's where I look at the Cowboys. I say, aha, that's where you have a weakness. That could be your Achilles heel. Similar to what I said with Minnesota and some of these other teams that have a young secondary. That's where the Cowboys could struggle. If their secondary, if the front four isn't getting pressure, the secondary could struggle. But at the end of the day, there's just too much talent here. And Mike McCarthy, say what you want about him. I don't love him as a head coach. I don't think he's great. You know, however, he's an upgrade over Redhead Jesus. And they're going to win some ball games. They're a good football team, man. They're good enough to win the Super Bowl. They're that good from a talent perspective. But they always find a way to F it up because of Jerry Jones and company. And they'll do that again this year. But they're going to win this division at 11-5. They're a damn good football team on the Dallas Cowboys. I'm convinced of it. And so, got them winning the division and qualifying for the postseason. The Giants were 4-12 last year. I don't see them being that much better. I don't like their roster. I mean, I've talked to some people like, oh, the Giants have gotten so much better. Really? They have? Where? You know, what am I supposed to be excited? Am I supposed to be excited about Blake Martinez? What am I supposed to be excited about? Is Leonard Williams supposed to all of a sudden tear it up A full year as a Giant now? Like, what am I? David Mayo, big glob of Mayo. I'm supposed to get excited about that. He's already banged up. I thought they stole Xavier McKinney. Well, he's already banged up. Like, what am I supposed to get excited about with the Giants on the defensive side of the football? I don't know. And then when I look at the offensive side of the football, and oh, by the way, one of your first round picks from last year, no longer on the team. Like, I'm not feeling the Giants roster. And I didn't think they did enough at receiver. That was one of my biggest knocks on their draft, is like, seriously? You're going to roll with Darius Slayton, as a guy that you're going to say is, if not our number one, because we really believe in Sterling Shepard, we're going to roll with him as our legit number two. I just thought that they could have done more. They got every Ohio State undrafted wide receiver that they could find. It's not good enough for me. Now, Saquon Barkley, much like I said with Christian McCaffrey, he's good for about 2 wins by his damn self. And I really like their head coach, Joe Judge. I think he gets it. I'm not the biggest Daniel Jones fan, but I don't think he's trash either. I think I might have been wrong about Daniel Jones. We'll see. This is a big year for him. At the end of the day, I think that the Giants aren't that good of a football team yet, but they're going to learn. I think they're going to figure out what Joe Judge is looking for. I think they're going to weed out all the players that don't help. And then I think they're going to be a problem next year. If Daniel Jones is good and he follows up that impressive rookie season with another good campaign, I think they could be a dangerous team in 2021. Not so much in 2020. 5-11 for the New York Football Giants. And then finally, Washington football team. I've been steadfast on 6-10 the entire offseason. And I've followed this team very closely, obviously me being a fan. And I think that Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio and this defense and all of the weapons that we think we may have, I think we're still lacking at the receiver position, definitely at tight end. A lot of holes on this roster still. Offensive line is a question mark going into the season as well. And 6-10, 5-11, definitely on the table here. But something tells me we're going to win an extra game that I didn't account for when I looked at the schedule initially. I think this team has a chance to go 7-9 this season. I probably should stick to my 6-10 prediction, but I think 7-9 is within reach. So I'm going to go with 7-9 against my better judgment. I probably should go 6-10 because that's what I've been saying all offseason. And that's probably more along the lines, but I can't see Rivera coaching a double-digit loss outfit, even in his first year in Washington. I just don't see it happening. Even with all the mess that he had going on in Carolina last year and all the quarterbacks that he was cycling through and having to deal with Kyle Allen and all of his turnovers, if he didn't get fired, I think they would have won 7 games last year. I felt like they were capable of doing that, but that's nor here nor there. At the end of the day, I think this team, I think Dwayne Haskins, the key here is I think the defense is going to be phenomenal, and I think Dwayne Haskins has a chance to really quiet the naysayers and doubters, and I think he has once and for all a chance to prove that he is the franchise quarterback in Washington, and I think he's going to do that. And so because of all of those things kind of lining up with one another, I think they're going to be in ball games. I think they're a young team. They're not going to know how to win. They're going to lose some games that they're right there in, some games that they jump out to a lead in. And I think they're going to find a way to end up 6-10, 7-9, somewhere in there. I've got them at 7-9. Probably should have stuck with 6-10, but I'm going to go with 7-9. And so when you look at this division as a whole, Cowboys win the division at 11-5, make it to the postseason. Eagles miss out on the postseason at 9-7. The Washington football team finishes at third, 7-9. Giants bring up the rear at 5-11. And so when you look at the two conferences, your 7 postseason teams in the AFC looks like this: Chiefs, Chargers, Texans, Colts, Ravens, Steelers, Bills. In the NFC, it's as follows: 49ers, Seahawks, Rams, Packers, Saints, Falcons, Cowboys. Those are your 7 playoff teams for a grand total of 14. Now, you guys tell me what you think. Leave it in the comment section of this video. Can't wait to read. And I know I'm going to get a lot of people crushing me, especially Buccaneers fans, because they think I hate the Buccaneers. And I don't. I don't have a problem with the Buccaneers. I don't know why they think. And this is the thing that is funny. Because the Buccaneers fans, they get on me every year. And then at the end of the season, they come back and tell me I was right. And so all I'm doing is spitting facts. That's it. That's all. I am, though. And so I don't mean to seem like I'm always down in your team, but I'm always right. Tell me that I'm wrong. This could be the year that I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. And again, I think you're just going to miss the postseason. I think in year 2, with a much better understanding of what you need to do defensively, and Brady now more comfortable after, again, that's a big transition. And I know people think, oh, it's Tom Brady, he'll be fine. It's a big transition leaving New England, a place you've been for 2 decades, and then going to South Beach. Or not South Beach, but going to Tampa. It's a big difference. At the end of the day, we'll see what happens. But that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me on this podcast episode. It's been a fun one, man. Got to break down all the divisions, talk about what I think is going to take place. Looking forward to your predictions for the season. We are approaching 24 hours away from live professional tackle football. Let that sink in. Oh my God, it's happening. Feels like we haven't seen football in 2 years. Oh my God, with no preseason, I am over here like scratching like a fiend. I'm fiended up. Man, I can't wait till tomorrow night. Anyway, a lot of different things going on before I let you go. All right, we got free shipping for the Louie Tee Network merch. That's down in the description. NFL kickoff weekend sale. So make sure you jump on that. Get you some LTN merch. Support the brand. No shipping up until kickoff 1 o'clock on Sunday. So take advantage of that opportunity. Also, remember, if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button. What are you waiting on? Turn on those notifications so when I go live, you don't miss a thing. Remember, the season's about to start. I'm about to be live all the time, especially after games. Don't miss out. You want to be a part of the discussion, right? So hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Make sure you hit that like button while you're at it as well. And also, don't forget, I got a ton of things coming down the pipeline, including LTN exclusives. All right. Got the Soul Survivor pool. Be a part of that. Go to the website, LouieTeeNetwork.net. Check it out. All right. Also got the winners and losers league. Get in, man. If you think you can pick this league and pick winners, what are you waiting on? Show your stuff and maybe win some bread in the process. And then I've got the weekly pick'em pool as well. Don't want to commit to a whole season? That's fine. Week in and week out, I've got a pool, or I've got a weekly pick'em pool. Pick the winners, man. If you think you're good at this, as good as me, which you're not, but if you think you are, come test the kid. All right? So a lot of things there. And then also, there is Patreon. And remember, Patreon, a lot of exclusive content there. If you want to follow this league closely, I'm going to be doing a lot of extra content on Patreon. The rookie wall is going to be on Patreon, exclusive to Patreon. We're going to follow these rookies and see who are the best 7 rookies for the duration of the 2020 season. Also, we're going to have NFL peak performers every week. Guys stand out and ball out of control. I'm going to be highlighting those guys every single week, exclusive on Patreon, NFL peak performers. And again, if you're a Washington football fan, we'll also be breaking down film on Patreon exclusively. So a lot of content over there as well. Don't miss out. Your man Louie T is getting busy. Wants you to be along for the ride. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, as I glide to the side. Man, 24 hours away from kickoff of the 2020 season is the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs host Deshaun Watson in the Houston Texans. Remember, they were in the same spot last year. Hostile environment on the road, and the Chiefs are going to have some fans. And Deshaun Watson took those boys down the field and looked like they were about to win. And then Drew Brees took him down the field, got him in the field goal range, and he got his head hurt right at the very end. Those boys are not afraid to go on the road and bust some shit up. Look out for the damn Texans in week 1. Anyway, I digress. You guys take it easy. Have a good one. And remember, if it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage. It could be. Until next time, you guys take it easy. Have a good one.
Louie Tee Network.